Um, and I'm all frustrated. Renee asks in a secondary question, she said, should I go with Google's suggested target CPA within the maximize conversions strategy?
Okay.
And then she has some details that's not necessarily important to answering the question, but the point is this. I don't know if we've ever vocalized this before, but the way that I like to imagine this is the target CPA is not just some arbitrary number that doesn't really affect the campaign. It's essentially a throttle that is very close to what a manual bid campaign might have. So in other words, if your typical cost per conversion is $100 that you get, and you give Google a $300 target CPA, what you're doing is you're opening the gates wide and saying, go for it. I want volume. I want volume at the expense of a higher CPC, of a lower conversion rate, but I want volume. Spend all the budget as much as you can. Throw budget and throw a high CPC target together. Then if you were to do the opposite and move it down, you usually get $100 cost per acquisition. You move it down to $50. What you're saying is be very cautious. Do not spend the budget unless you can get something below expectations. Or above it. I don't know which phrase it would be, but essentially beyond my expectations, I want you to get even better cost per acquisition. And if you can't do it, don't even show the ads. Don't even try. So it's essentially a high number above what you're going for is going to give full throttle to the campaign. A low number is going to pull back. It's going to be a governor on the engine, essentially.
This will be the last one, but I want to go a little bit deep on target CPA, and I want to get some of your recent experiences with it. So just to get to setting it high or low, I like what you said, looking at it as a throttle, but we use the word throttle sometimes with manual bids, up and down, and you can control where you go very quickly. You got to be careful with doing that with target CPA, because every time you do that, the system's got to reset and learn, and you got to make sure you're giving it enough time, even when it's out of learning, quote unquote learning. You got to give it enough time to work and see if it can get results. So you got to be careful with how much you change it. So the question is, where do you set your CPA to start, high or low? I say be reasonable. Think about what your goal is and think if that's a reasonable goal. Look at what the cost per click has been if you've been on max clicks for a month or so, and then maybe say, what would 10 clicks be times that cost per click? 1 out of 10, a 10% conversion rate. Maybe let me start there. That seems reasonable for lead generation. That's how I'm thinking about where to set it. Let me ask you this, Chris. If you do that and you set it with something that's reasonable and then you run and it gets that CPA, would you then, and it spends your full budget. Let's say you have $100 CPA. That's reasonable for this, whatever industry we're talking about, hypothetical number. Set it at $100. You get $100 CPA or a 90 or a 95 or 105, whatever, somewhere around that range, and you're spending your full $1,000 a month budget. Would you then get greedy and push your chips to the middle of the table and say, you know what? I want to see if I can spend the full budget with a $70 CPA and set it to 70? How do you make that decision?
See, for me, I don't shake the tree if all of those factors are happening. If I'm hitting my goal acquisition,
a profitable.
Yeah.
Let's just say I'm hitting a profitable.
Yeah, I'm hitting a profitable and you're spending all of the budget, I'm not going to shake the tree in that situation. Now, if you take away you're not spending all of the budget, or your search impression share is really bad and you're losing due to budget, then okay, I might restrict it. If I am way underfunded and I can't spend all my money, I'm going to restrict it with a lower number. If I'm not spending all of my budget, and I have way more budget than I'm spending,
and you could live with $125 CPA,
then I'll go up. I'll go up on it. But typically when I'm starting a campaign, I'm going to start it with a suggested CPA goal.
Interesting.
That's usually what I'm going to start with. I mean, it works for me. A lot of times that CPA goal, if it has a lot of signals over a long period of time, it knows pretty well what it can do. And sometimes oftentimes it beats it. You know, it might give me $100
Yeah.
and then it beats it. It gets a $75, which is wonderful. So I'm not usually going to
Interesting.
push
Yeah.
it at the beginning.
Interesting. It's a out of all the bidding strategies,
Yeah.
target CPA to me is the toughest one to feel like I can master. Or
Mm-hmm.
it's the I asked you a hard question. You know, what would you do in these situations? My answer is I don't really know what I would do. It would be
Mm-hmm.
kind of client dependent, how they're feeling about things, our confidence level that this could keep going, or that if we touch it, it would mess it up, and
Yeah.
the confidence level of maybe we couldn't get it back. It's touch and go with target CPA. I've been in some spots where it doesn't work well at all. I've been in some spots where it's changed over time on us and it's hard to get back. But I've been in other spots where it works amazing and it beats other strategies, including manual. I'm just dealing with that right now. We had this really tough real estate industry campaign, Chris. You would get a kick out of this. Broad match is working great, but because
Oh
it's
boy.
broad match, because it's real estate, our ratio of search terms that we can see versus what we can't see, guess the number. 60 to 80% is on average.
Yeah. So I guess like 50-40% that you
10.
can see. Oh my gosh.
10. And the client was
Wow.
having a good CPA in the past, but they want us to improve things. And they were using an automated bid strategy that was not target CPA. We tried to improve things manually. Chris, we couldn't get it done because we didn't have the search term data.
Yeah.
And we tried target CPA. It worked. It beat
Mm.
his former campaigns. It beat ours. And we're putting in a $35 CPA. We're getting like a 27.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so I'm like with you. I'm like, don't get greedy. Oh my God, if it's actually working like this, let's just let it go. If it says limited by budget, great. We'll throw on some more budget. Other than that, maybe try adding some more keywords if you can find them. But I'm very, very, very careful with target CPA. It's like driving a very expensive race car around. You got to be very, very careful. And if it's working, just kind of go with what's working. That's kind of my thoughts on target CPA,
Yeah.
Chris.
I agree.